Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bestseller Live. I am your host, Cynthia Johnson, and I am here today with another wonderful author and executive. We have Bill Canady. Bill is the CEO of both OTC Industrial Technologies and Arrowhead Engineered Products, AEP. At OTC, he led a 43% increase in revenue and an 80% rise in earnings, with an annual sales now exceeding $1 billion. That's right, $1 billion. At EAP, he oversees more than 3,600 employees and $1.5 billion in sales. He is also a U.S. Navy vet and an MBA. Welcome, Bill.
Well, thank you so much. And what a great introduction. I want to make you my new hype person.
Oh, that's what I'm best at. But there's so much here that you don't even need to be a hype person. It's a lot of clarity in your bio, I will say, for so much.
Thank you. It's very kind.
Yeah. We were just talking a little bit before coming on here live. This is your second book we're here to talk about, From Panic to Profit, Uncover Value, Boost Revenue, and Grow Your Business with the 80-20 Principle. Tell us about the first book a little bit so we can jump into the second, because they are related.
They are. In fact, I have 7 books lined out for it. So the first book, which is the 80-20 CEO, was really a book kind of sectioned into three pieces. So there was a little bit about me and my history. Then the second piece was how you came in and got command and control of a company in a short period of time, around 100 days. And then the third is, here's the tool set that you use to do it. From panic to profit is the journey you take living this over that couple-year period, right? It's living and having to deal with doing all of these changes and what happens with you, your team, and things like
that. I love that you said journey, because we're talking to people where it's not an overnight, like how, just because of the name, how long is this panic period you're referring to?
Well, the panic typically happens before I show up. Right. So when things are not going well, let's start on the other side. If things are going fantastic, no one changes. Right. Why change? Life is great. But when the wheels come off, and depending on the severity of that, when the wheels come off, they need help. And people like me and others come in and we offer that help. And it's really around identifying what the issues are. We do that through data, interviewing people, talking about it, and then giving them a very thoughtful roadmap forward that allows those who want to take that journey to really be part of it and take the organization from where it was and not a great spot into where, the future is bright. You can give exceptional opportunities through your employees, be great partners to your supply chain and customers, and give a superior return to your investors. And that's really what it's all about. You got to look at all of the folks that help you get there.
And what, I guess it's all built on the 80-20 principle. Could you give us a little summary of what that principle is?
Yeah, so the 80-20 principle, which has been around forever, right? Back Wilfredo Pareto came up with it, is really just says 80% of what you get, 80% of your return, right, comes from 20% of where you're putting that effort. So we put 100% effort out, 80% is wasted, 20% goes to what really makes it happen, and that gives you back all your return. And the model is predicated upon, if you can identify what that 20% is, then you can avoid working on the 80% or make it automated as much as possible, so your energy and your efforts and your money go to where you really get a superior return. And that's really what it's about. The data tells you where it's at, and it's around getting your team together and focusing on those critical fields.
I know that we've heard the 80-20 rule before, but it's different to implement. Understanding it's one thing, but actually applying it and making it successful it can be a challenge. How do you address that in the book?
That's a really great question. The implement it really comes down to one thing. It's about change management. It's about, you show up and things are going in a direction that people don't want it to go. And you got to change that course. And that is super hard. It's super hard for a variety of reasons. It means some people take it as, hey, I was doing something wrong. Other people take it as, we've always done it this way. And it kind of goes on from there. as a leadership, as a new leadership coming in, as a CEO coming in, the job is to really get people kind of focused and surrounding what's going to make them better. There's no magic to it. It's just, hey, I'm making money here. I'm not making money there. I'm having success here. I'm not having success there. How do I shift my resources, my people, my money, my efforts over to where it's at? That is so easy to be said, but it's so hard to do. You've got to get people, one, buying into it. They have to see it, believe it. You've got to be, so it's part of their idea just coming in. I don't know if you have kids or not, but we were all a kid at one time, and our mom would tell us, go do this. We did just the opposite thing, right? So it's herding cats. It's getting people to believe into that. So the process is really about understanding the data, so you understand what really is, what is effective, what's not. And then it's around getting people to coalesce around that and make those changes. It's by far the hardest piece of it. It's where all the energy and effort goes. Because, look, anyone can look at a P&L statement, a number, and see if it's positive or negative. If it's negative, stop doing it. You'll quit losing money. If it's positive, do more. You'll make more money. It's that simple. But boy, is it hard getting people to make those changes. It's just like, I need to lose 20 pounds. I still have not lost 20 pounds, right? I know I just need to eat less. So easy said, hard to do.
First of all, starting off with the role of the CEO is to do this, because I think you're hitting on something that sometimes gets missed by everybody. It's like, what is the CEO's actual role? And then when you talk about, yes, everyone can make those decisions. How do you get them on board? Are there key people you need to get on board first? Or is it, okay, who are those people? We want to know.
These are great questions, because this is exactly it. That's why you need a thoughtful process that's been, if you will, battle tested, right? It's gone through it. So the CEO has many jobs, but the most important job when they show up is to set the goal. Where are we going? What does good look like? What is our destination? I use a lot of, first, I'm an old Navy guy. And secondly, people can sometimes understand the military about how it kind of works, right? So the CEO, like a general, their job is to decide, this is where we're going. We're going to go take that hill. I've got to get this to a certain number. And so the CEO's job is to set that goal. And I'm just going to say the goal is get to 100%, right? We want to get to 100% of whatever it is we want. And let's assume we're half the way there. We're 50% of the way there. So back to the military, a general would say, I've got to go take this hill, right? I've got an enemy, whatever that means, and I'm going to go plant my flag on that hill. Well, he can tell you where the goal is, or the hill is, and all that. Same thing as the CEO. So the CEO, when you come in day one, what you want to do is get your team together. And by your team, I mean your direct reports, your staff, and sit down and get agreement of what that goal is. Now, you would think in most organizations, it is clear what the goal is. It is by far the furthest thing from the truth. Everyone sees the goal through their own lens, and then they may or may not have ever been told what the goal is. So there's three types of companies out there. There's a private company that's owned by an individual or family, or maybe a couple of families. There's private equity, which is a space today where people put their money into a company. Very similar to private, but the goal on that one generally is just to make money, right? And then the final one's a public company. So if you look at the private company, the goal is typically whatever the ownership is of it. And in some cases, it's to take care of a community, take care of their employees. Other times, they just want a bigger boat, right? It's generally in a private company, one of the most important pieces is the dividend. The dividend is how the family lives, right? So they want that protected at all costs. As the CEO, you need to know what that is, what's important to them, and that goal has to be your goal. I'm going to talk about a private equity because it's the easiest one to understand. Generally, private equity wants to own a business for a certain amount of time, then sell that business and get a return on their equity. So it's very simple. I put $1 in, I want $3 back, and I want it in 5 years or less. That's a very typical private equity goal. As the CEO, and you're setting here and your goal is to get to that, you just do the math. So if they put $100 in and they want 3 times back, what's the goal? What do you think? $300, right? They want 3
times the goal.
That's the goal. And so when you come in, if you know that, you sit down with your team and you ask them, what is our goal? And if you're in private equity, you know it's the $300. That's what's important. And then the question is, how will we get there, right? So back to your initial question, how do you do it? So you come in, you establish the goal. It's based off of whatever your ownership structure is and what's important to the owners. In this case, we said we're going to go from $100 to $300. We've got to get there. I make that goal known to everyone on my staff. Their job is to come up with the strategy to get to that goal. That's their whole job. Come up with the strategy to get to that. And it's important they come up with it. Cynthia, do you know why?
To the buy-in.
They get buy-in. If you don't get buy-in, all you're going to do is keep telling them this is, and they will never believe you. They can't see it. They don't believe it. Not going to do it. You have to get buy-in. The most effective way to do it is they have to come up with how we're going to get there. Now, they may not believe the goal. They may not agree with it. What happens if they don't believe the goal?
Well, nobody wants to work towards something they think is impossible.
They leave. That's right. That's exactly it. You either buy in and become part of it where we're going, or this is not the place for you, right? And that's okay, right? Maybe it's a different role somewhere else. Maybe there's a different company. But the important thing is everyone who's around that table is committed to achieving that goal. When they believe and they own that, then they can determine a strategy that will get it there. So that's step 2. Determine a strategy. That's the operators. That's the people running the business. That would be their title to be a president or vice president or something. They're the daily runners. Once they determine what that strategy is, the next thing that has to be determined, and that same group will do it, but they bring in the people below them, is how do we organize around that strategy? Because you can say, hey, I want to take it from $100 to $300. In order to do that, I need to develop new products, or we need to put in a new location, or whatever it is. But if we don't have the people to develop the products, or we don't have the people to put in a new location, that goal will not happen. So their job is, once the strategy is agreed upon, is to staff themselves appropriately. Make sure they've got people who know how to develop a product or put in a location. Then the final step, once they have the goal, the strategy, and the organization to do it, is they go execute. So that's the tactical, actually go do it. That's the 4 steps. You can get there in 100 days if or less if you're motivated to get there that fast. And typically, to be motivated, things have to be pretty bad, right? Because they're not going to change if things are good. That's a massive change in strategy in 100 days. So it's not even 6 months. A lot has to happen in that. People have to believe in it. That's why you got to make sure they're on board and they want to do it.
Mm. And what is in your experience, if there's 100 days, how many of those days are spent on getting to the goal? Typically,
it happens first week. You get the goal settled within 7 days of starting.
Wow.
One meeting. So I agree to take the job. Before I even do that, I know what the goal it needs to be based on talking to the board of directors, the owners, whoever that is. They will tell me, and that is driven by contract, right? So I know exactly what we have to get to before I show up.
Okay.
So then I pick up the phone, Cynthia, and I call my CFO, and I ask him, do we have the money to achieve this? Because some of it we're going to have to invest. Some of it we have to go buy. So we might have to buy a new company. We may have to launch new products. We may have to expand. Can we, or do we have access to the capital? And then the second piece I ask is organically, right? How fast do we think we can grow? What does this industry grow? So if you're in software, you might grow at 200% a year. But if you're selling light bulbs, maybe you just grow at whatever the economy grows at, which may be 1% a year, 2% a year. So telling someone in light bulbs, and I'm picking on light bulbs because it just is whatever the housing market is doing, right? That they got to grow at 200% a year probably isn't realistic. And telling someone in software they only need to grow at 1% a year, they're probably going to think you're crazy, right? So it's got to be fit for purpose. So I sat down with my CFO, my person in charge of finance, and I say, do we have the wherewithal to do it? If he says yes or she says yes, if they say yes, then we set the meeting with the team generally within that first week. And generally it's offsite at like a hotel conference room or something. We generally go offsite so we're not distracted. And we will get agreement on that goal in that meeting. And that meeting will generally be 2 days.
Okay. And the meeting is held with the executive team primarily.
The CEO staff. Everyone on the CEO staff will be there, plus anyone else necessary. There could be some reason we need someone else, right? Could be a facilitator. Could be someone that has a subject matter or expert that we've got to be there. Now, before we show up in that meeting, I'm going to have every conversation I can have. I will have talked to all my staff, say, hey, here's what we're doing. What do you think? What's your idea? How are we doing? And all that. But we get together. It's actually kind of a fun meeting, right? Because particularly in a company that's going through a tough time, because all of a sudden people start getting hope. We can do this. We actually can do this.
Yeah. And the 80-20 rule principle, right? So you're looking at that in these meetings as well.
I'm sorry, Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, we do, but not in the way of like, let's talk about the 80-20 principle. We talk about it from the sense of, in theory, all of your return is going to come by focusing. That's what it means. You just got to get focused, right? So we talk about the 80-20 from that, but otherwise we don't spend a lot of time on the theory of 80-20. It's like we have a tool sets or data analysis tools that will feed in our sales, who our customers are, who our products are, and that will tell us where we're making money, where we're losing money. We probably will not have that going into the meeting. It's not important that we have it, but we'll get it shortly thereafter, right? So we go into that meeting, we talk about Pareto's principle because we want them to know that in order to win, we must focus. That we've got to get something across the finish line that's big enough and meaningful enough that if it works, we win. It does no good to go finish something that's not enough, right? You're just planning to fail then, right? It's like saying, I need to go 100 miles, but I'm only going to pack gas for 50. Well, I got to get all the way 100. So I got to have enough juice, enough gas to get me across the finish line.
Yeah. And then also to not get distracted along the way, to add more weight.
Every one of these meetings, someone will raise their hand metaphorically and go, hey, what about this? This is so important. You go, well, it may be really important, but unless we all agree, because the goal is not set by committee, but the strategy is coming through the committee, right? It is a crowdsourced strategy for sure. So in order for it to work, they got to believe in it. It's got to be something we're already doing, because if we're making pumps, we're not going in the restaurant business, right? It's too far afield. So it's in the stuff we're already doing with it. Otherwise, we just won't have the time. So they have to believe, they have to think they can do that. And so it has to, we call it pass the sniff test, right? If it smells bad, like bad milk, we're not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Oh, for sure.
You do this with companies, right? So do you have an example or maybe like a perfectly sized situation company that you're like, that's what I'm looking for, or just any like real experience that you can share with us?
Well, sure. We've done this hundreds of times and it works every time. I've never seen a situation where getting focused on what's working and doing more of it doesn't make the company better, right? It just means you have to make tough decisions because not everyone's going to be happy. Some people are going to want to keep doing whatever they were doing, and it's unfortunate. We're not going to do that anymore. And I don't make that decision. The data tells us, and the people coming together will say, well, that's a pet project, and it's just not time for it right now. So a very typical example, I took over a company, it's about $700 million on the top line, about $70 million on the bottom line. We were in trouble. We were running out of cash. Our debts were bigger than what we had and everything. Today, that business is over. After 18 months, it was over $1 billion and $200 million on the bottom line. So what did we do to do it so quickly? Well, we recognized our biggest issue, this was during the pandemic, was our incoming pricing. What people sold us our products for had gone up over 25%, right? Across the board. It was extraordinary. And we all hear it. You hear it today. People go, the hamburgers are so expensive. And every time I go out to eat, it's so expensive. And these shoes and all that. Well, these all go back to some product someone made, right? So our costs had gone up dramatically, but we had only raised our pricing by 5%. So we were rapidly running out of money because our input costs were increasing at a greater rate than what we were charging for it. So by running the data and doing a health check on the business, we were quickly able to identify these are the products that are killing us. These are the services that are killing us. Our costs are out of control. Then by looking at it through the lens of 80-20 and saying, which ones are important to us? Which products do we have to go fix versus just stopping it, right? So in other words, if you had a product that was losing a lot of money, but was not being sold very much, or we didn't have the capability of making it better, we could just exit it. Just by exiting it, just by stopping doing it, we would quit losing money. So we were able to identify the customers that were important to us just by looking at the data. We were identify the products that were important to us, again, same way. And then we could shift our resources from the things that were not worthwhile to the things that were worthwhile. We did that really rapidly, right? Within 90 days of starting, we had already reorganized ourselves into being around our best customers. Our top customer, who was Toyota, we were doing $40 million a year with. We were actually losing money with Toyota. Our best customer, we were losing money because they were asking us to do things that we couldn't do very well. And they were asking us to do things we weren't charging very well. We went back to Toyota. We worked with them to identify what they really cared about and what we really cared about. And within about 6 months, we had reorganized ourselves with them. We actually put more resources on Toyota. We actually put a team around it. We got our pricing right. That business grew dramatically overnight and became very profitable again. Toyota was happy because they wanted a good vendor and a good partner. We were happy. We needed a good customer. We had some other customers that were not doing very well, and we looked at it and we looked at the history. We said, we can't make this better. They want to buy things from us that just doesn't fit our model. And so we went to them and said, well, we're going to make a change, and here's what the change looks like. You either got to pay a whole lot more, or you're going to have to find someone else to go do it. And you see that every day with vendors, where people will come and say, Cynthia, if you want to keep doing this, this is your new charge. And then you make a choice to either do it or not. Well, that's the same thing we did there. And within 6 months, the business was turned around and we were heading in the right direction. At the same time, we had huge turnover in people. Remember, it was the pandemic. People didn't want to go to work anymore. People couldn't go to work in some cases. We had to figure that out. We had to deal with the benefits that came with all that. Things like, how was insurance going to be dealt with? How were people going to be working out of home? We had to make sure they had the equipment. So it was a lot that came at us. But because we got focused in the areas we knew that was important to us, we didn't try to fix everything. Some of that we dealt with later.
Yeah, and that's also fixed the overwhelm of having so many problems, because we actually one problem maybe. So in the book, this book, the first book, and now the second book, who are they for? Is it for the leader in trouble?
Yeah. So the first book, the 80-20 CEO, was really for the CEO and their team, so they would understood what you needed to focus around. The second book, the From Panic to Profit, is really for everyone else who has to go take that journey, right? It lets you know what's going to be coming at you, and it helps you think through it and how you should expect. So, and by the way, these books work for no matter what process you're putting in. It still takes people. You still have to get focused, right? We just happen to have an operating model around it. But when you're out there and you're in the middle of the heat of the battle and things are coming at you, you have to have a thoughtful process to get through it. You see it with many professions. Like, you're a doctor, you come up on an accident. How do you know what to do first? Is it because they're bleeding, or they're not breathing, or their heart's not? There's an order you have to go through, because if you don't fix this, nothing else matters, right? And so it's the same way in running a business. If you run out of cash, you're in trouble. So you got to fix your cash problem pretty quickly. If you don't have people to do the work, you're in trouble, right? So there's these things you got to know about the business, and most of it's true across every one of them, but each business has their own unique situation. Some have stronger teams, some have better products. Some are in bad locations. Some have competitors that are way tougher. You have to look at all that, put it through the framework you're working on, so you can make a decision about what you can fix and it's worthwhile. Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that you're writing for all of the different perspectives, because I've been in everyone's gone through this. I've worked with startups and best sold and so on. And even the change from the pre-acquisition room to the post-acquisition room is, whatever, who thinks what is important just changes dramatically. It's hugely different, right? Yeah. One is you try, you go kill the beast, right? You win the deal. The second one is you got to eat the beast. Holy cow, right? And it's a whole different group of people. They're like, I can't believe they said we're going to do. We're never doing that, right? So it's like a whipsaw from one to the other. But you got to live with it, and you got to realize you're dealing with human beings who have their own problems and their own situation, their own aspirations. They got to feel safe. They got to feel like they want to work here. And sometimes the economy's bad, so people will stay. Sometimes the economy's great, they leave instantly. So it's all this stuff that's happening that you have to navigate with through there. And there's so much coming at the leader and the team everywhere. You need a process, a way to be thoughtful about what you're doing that, doesn't leave people behind, doesn't abuse them, doesn't do that. They have to feel safe and feel like they can win too.
Yeah, win too. And you can say no, but does the goal setting ever fix burnout?
Well, the way you deal with burnout is you have to recognize there's only 24 hours in a day, and just telling someone go do more, they're already doing a lot. So let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt and say they're working 100%, right? They're giving everything they got, in other words. This is why when I talked before about the reorganization, right? So you get a goal, you have a strategy, then you have to reorg and get your priorities straight. Because what generally happens is you'll go to your team and you'll say, all right, we need to focus on these customers. If you don't give them permission as well as a process to quit focusing on the other, they will do both. They'll feel like they have to do both because maybe their boss is telling them to do both. Maybe they like that customer. They don't want to leave them behind. So that's where the change management really comes in, is you have to quit doing what you were doing and start doing the new stuff. Otherwise, you go from working, say, an 8 or 10 hour day. Now you're working 14, 15, 16 hours a day. You burn people out that way.
No, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this book. Again, I work with a lot of leaders going through all these different stages, and just the idea that you can present the perspective to them for the room, which is very difficult when you're drowning in your own work. Book comes out April 25th or April 29th. Right.
That's the 29th, but that's okay. It's in April.
Of 2025.
It's available for purchase April 14th, and then it comes out April 29th. It'll be in bookstores across, really across the nation. So I think we're going to be in 133 airports. We'll be in like the Barnes and Noble in Times Square, all this kind of stuff. Right? We've got a really great team who's putting it out there. So it's super, super exciting for us.
That is really exciting. So I was going to have you tell people where they can find you in the book, but it sounds like anywhere.
Could be anywhere, but you can always come to my website, billcanady.com, or, Amazon. Something between 65 and 85% of all books today are sold through Amazon. Mm-hmm. And it'll be available in hardback and digital download and Audible. So any way you want to get it, you'll be able to. But we think it's a really great book. The timing is right. We're going through so many changes in this country, from, who knows, bringing stuff back to America, to the economy doing what it is. It's a time where a lot of companies are struggling and they're looking for a way to get through this, from higher interest rates and things like that. I think we're on a great foot going forward. I'm excited about what the future holds. And a lot of these companies that are struggling right now, they need a path, a way to get through it. And I think this book can help them do that.
Yeah, I would agree. So for everyone listening, that was billcanady.com is where you can find more about Bill. The book is available for purchase on April 14th, 2025. That's this year. I can't believe where you
I know.
made it. And
we did it.
And it's officially out everywhere on the 29th of April. It's an excellent book. And as always, we will be back next week with another author and another book. But Bill, it was so amazing to have you here, and really looking forward to getting a physical copy of this book in my hands.
I can't wait to send you one. If I had it, I'd do it right now. So the copies will be coming out soon, and everyone will be able to have it in their hand on the April 29th. They'll be shipping that very day. So thank you again. This has been amazing, and really, really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.